When we look at the history of liberal revolution, we can see some tactics that were successful and some that weren't. And it is honestly a case-by-case scenario for many of these situations, but one of these tactics that needs case-by-case analysis is civil disobedience. Many of us are taught in school about the famous cases that win out: Gandhi, MLK, Mandela, etc. But in some cases, civil disobedience will not work. First, it is important to review the winning cases of civil disobedience. Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi are the cases we will consider successes to an extent. Both didn't get to achieve their full goals though, as they tried to peacefully reform too much too fast for the status quo to deal with. As well, the radicals in the back of their movement were not peacefully resisting, but doing the dirty work of violence, while the peaceful leaders benefited. But I digress. To think of civil disobedience, let's go to Henry David Thoreau. All men recognize the right of revolution, that is, the right to refuse allegiance to and to resist the government when its tyranny or its inefficiency are great and unendurable. Unjust laws exist. Shall we be content to obey them, or shall we endeavor to amend them and obey them until we have succeeded, or shall we transgress them at once? One would think that a deliberate and practical denial of its authority was the only offense never contemplated by government. Else, why is it not assigned its definite, its suitable and proportionate penalty? A man has not everything to do, but something, and because he cannot do everything, it is not necessary that he should do something wrong. I simply wish to refuse allegiance to the state, to withdraw and stand aloof from it effectually. I believe these sentiments capture the original intent of civil disobedience as a concept. It has a time and place to be specifically applied to. It can't work for everything, but it's worthwhile if the politics are moral. But something different has happened. Something horrid. It is of my belief that in recent times it is the goal of fascists to appear as if they are the ones in civil disobedience, as to make themselves seem noble in their goals. Take an example. Fascists love to manipulate the arguments around free speech, so that they can gain and maintain a platform within a conversation of traditionally liberal values, and claim their rights are under attack when they don't have a platform. The fascists and their sympathizers will try to make themselves seem as the martyrs of leftist violence, so it is important that they can never achieve that narrative. There needs to be provocation on any action against them. No matter how right it may seem, the narrative that they are at all under attack and not being pushed back against can never be allowed. Most leftist anti-fascists are aware of this matter, but there's a problem. Liberals are getting involved. The problem is not their opposition to fascism. The problem is their tactics. Liberals have a tendency to just act, and do it impulsively. Anti-fascism is a very organized, specific action for a reason. If it's not in response to something, but a preventative action, it allows the fascists to spin their narrative. The lack of standard anti-fascism from the divide of leftist tactics and liberal tactics leads to an unclear narrative and conflation of all anti-fascists, and gives the fascists a platform to grow. Without a solid anti-fascist tactic complete across all lines, the fascists win. Let's examine two examples, one that's the right tactic and one that's the wrong tactic. The correct example here is when Richard Spencer was scared off, punched, and glitter bombed when he was making a big deal about being in support of Assad. This is a solid example because it exposes him for his fascist rhetoric and shuts him down, and makes him scared for doing such. This is a response to his direct ideological actions, and that is why this violence can be justified. The incorrect example, while being able to be seen as a victory, was not. It was when Spencer was kicked out of the gym. This was right in the sense that he's a Nazi, he shouldn't be allowed anywhere. But, as stated before, this wasn't in response to an immediate ideological action. Sure, it was in response to him being a Nazi, but the issue is he wasn't being a Nazi out loud there, and that allows him to spin a narrative to sympathizers that he is being targeted, as he proceeded to do for the next 2 weeks. While the action itself was correct, the timing not being after himself exposing his own horrid rhetoric is the issue. The person who did it was right in action, but not in timing. It wasn't thought out. At least, not thought out enough. We cannot seem to be the instigators in our fight of fascism. However right we may be in opposing them, they must start the action, otherwise they can claim martyrdom. I would like to point out that the fascists and their sympathizers using this tactic, that the specific tactic is in Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. The real action is the enemy's reaction. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, That is rule number 13. This applies to both anti-fascists and fascists. We must be seen in reaction immediately. By no means am I saying we shouldn't be there wherever fascists are organizing and be present. I'm saying be present and ready to respond immediately. Delaying your response to a place where it doesn't seem relevant, like a week or two later at a gym, makes it seem as if we were the instigators. In order to make sure that they cannot control the narrative, we must employ tactics that allow for them to always be explained as the aggressors. We must make it impossible for them to spin it to support themselves. If they cannot control the narrative, their true nature can be shown. We must pick our battles and know when to arrive to deliver swift defense, and when to lay low and let the fascists waste their efforts. We must unify anti-fascist tactics, otherwise the fascists can spin their narrative and we lose. So liberals, please stop doing what you've been doing and start doing the right thing. Sincerely, the Radical Left. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd also like to point out that I wrote this a few weeks ago and it's a little behind the times, so I'd like to update it soon and follow it up with a more updated version. So thank you for watching, and my Patreon's linked below.